Hi there. I'm your host, Zoe. This is Scrutiny, Chapter 2, Ophelia. You're about to meet Ophelia. As always, viewer discretion is advised. This shit is dark. A lone store standing in a dark field. No one around for miles, it seemed, though she knew there was a gas station just over the hill, less than a mile away. She felt utterly alone here, just the way she liked it. Ophelia sat outside, not eager to beckon in any customers, but happy to watch for them. She was smoking. No one knew she'd taken up this habit, but she couldn't help it. The cotton filter between her fingers gave her something to look forward to at the end of her shifts. She allowed herself only this indulgence. This one was one nasty, wonderful sin. It was hard to not let herself have more than this. She wanted it all. She breathed in a cooling breeze as it rolled over her damp face. Anything for the relief from the humidity, regardless of the smell. Humidity, of course, was nothing new for the New Yorker, but the smell of manure worked into everything, the layers of it stamped into every piece of earth around her. That had to be an unpleasant surprise, of course. It had gotten better for the brief respite of the fall, when everything was too dry to spread and the farmers were too busy to even come into her store. She liked that all right. She looked forward to that. She told herself only one more month and it would all dry out. Then she'd get that one blessed month of freedom before the snow set in and September turned the fields muddy again. Ophelia heard a honking horn and opened her eyes. Customer. Lovely. First one in over an hour. She straightened her chair, moving to stand, but the car just did a few donuts, spraying the caked mud around the small lot, splattering her and every other nearby surface. Fuck. She felt lucky that at least she decided to park around the corner that evening. She usually parked in the front so people could see the store was open. Tonight, she'd hoped for silence. They blared their horn, racing off down the road towards the main city, Brunswick. Ophelia held up a single arm and a single finger in protest. Bastards. Disrespectful kids. 3 years ago, she would have been the one driving. It was getting late, nearly time for her to go home. She glanced at her watch and considered, not quite late enough to call Hannah yet. She sighed and examined the sky with a lingering sense of need. It was a full moon tonight. Ophelia had recently begun a foray into the occult, something utterly taboo in her own household. She was raised with rigid atheism. The only conversation around the big man in the sky was the one that made fun of his believers. Ophelia had somewhat explored faith and religion in college, but the moment her parents got wind of that credit, they shut it down. No need for her to explore science fiction on their dime. Her skin crawled at the thought. Their dime, their time, their fucking mind. They were that way about everything. The only thing that mattered was dance. Ophelia shuddered. She threw down her cigarette, a nasty, awful, disgusting habit she'd picked up for them. To please them. She shouldn't have let her have this habit again. It was a slippery slope. A first one, before she was on a special tea to get slim back up real quick, or Adderall to keep herself up for these late shifts. No, she would not do that to herself again. She deserved better. She repeated the phrase in her head over and over. I deserve better. I deserve better. She didn't remember the first person who had said that to her, only the day it finally cemented in her head. She was hungry and bored right now. That's why she was seeking out the cigarette. Ophelia crushed the pack out of her back pocket, first in her hand and then with the heel of her shoe. She tossed the pack in the outside trash before heading in. Waste of resources, waste of self, waste of... No. She stopped herself. Another habit she was breaking. No more self-depreciation. She was beautiful, strong, resilient. She would not wear herself down. She went straight for the bathroom to wash the filth off her hands. There was nothing for the splattering of manure across her clothes. It added to the myriad of filth already staining her work garments. She disregarded the mess. Another once taboo thing in her world, and instead chose to admire herself. Her fingernails were black from hard work, cut down very short to keep them from snagging on things. Her hands were filthy, as they were always on stocking days. Nothing she ever encountered was quite as filthy as cardboard. Her hands felt stronger than they used to be, and she loved that. Love came easily these days. She loved her routine. Her job was simple, getting to be a little boring, maybe, but the routine made up for it. For the first time in her life, she had real friends, not rivals masquerading as accomplices. Ophelia longed for 10 p.m. to come so that she might pester her bestie. Hannah was probably getting ready for bed at this very moment, but Ophelia intended to put a stop to that. Her time would be better spent not sleeping, but having fun in the woods. Ophelia grumbled softly, returning to the front of the store. It was not yet 9:30, the time in which she could call Hannah. She still had 15 minutes, as unbelievable as that was. Ophelia stood at the entrance, overlooking the moonlit parking lot. The street and storefront lights were out again. A repairman was due any time in the next few weeks, but unfortunately when it came to the more rural dollar stores, repairmen tended to drag their feet. They were over 20 miles from the nearest real city. A car drove by, coming from the hamlet Brunswick, which Ophelia called home. It slowed and turned at the faraway inlet opposite her storefront. She sighed, half hoped to have had a customer and half that she wouldn't have. She wasn't supposed to close early, but they hadn't had any customers this evening, not even any runaway teenagers gallivanting away into the night. She could close early and save them some money. She walked away from the entrance, back down the hallway, past the bathrooms, and to the left, into a small employee break room. One plastic folding table, purchased in aisle B for $15, a real steal, supported a microwave they'd bought somewhere else, and enough napkins and plastic silverware to paper the entire room, twice. Next to that was a single ancient folding chair with her bag propped up against the legs. She dug into her bag, looking for the last of the nuts she'd bought for lunch. She found them and dumped them into her mouth. There was more in the bag than she'd expected. She moved around the lounge, crunching and misbehaving. There weren't any cameras in the lounge. She'd also learned that if she stepped carefully out the lounge, down the hallway, on the bathroom side, she could stay out of view of cameras all the way to the first aisle, health and beauty. If she then sidestepped very carefully along a lightly marked path she'd drawn out one night, maybe a year prior, she could take advantage of a series of blind spots going pretty much anywhere she wanted in the store except health and beauty and the cash register line. Ophelia did not allow herself many indulgences in life, given that she had a tendency to take things probably 3 steps further than stop. However, she refused to deny herself her first ever love, pranking. Next to the plastic table was a pair of huge helium tanks, probably 1,000 colorful cellophane balloons. It was strictly against Dollar Deal's policy to inhale the helium. Watching the plastic crinkle and grow, sparkling in the low light, she kept the lights down in the evenings, was enough to bring her a lot of joy. She wanted to inhale the chemical, experience the lilty high voice that would come with it, but decided that was too slippery a slope, and instead she tied a long string to the balloon and walked back out of the room. She went down the hallway in the manner that she'd described and into the main store. She'd done this maybe 3 times since her arrival. A single balloon, never mind the color, placed somewhere randomly in a box set to be opened by another coworker. Then a careful trek back to the lounge, where she would reappear on camera as though she'd never left. She moved into the adjoining office. 3 oversized and overstuffed filing cabinets were squished into the leftmost corner. An iron desk, long past its prime, took up the entire opposite wall, barely leaving enough room for the 2 chairs, one rolling on plastic wheels and the other wooden, heavier than any modern chair had a right to be. To make matters worse, the door opened in and didn't stay open unless the wooden chair was propped against it. Atop the desk was a thick laptop with a 3-inch dongle sticking out of the side. Above that was a string of computer monitors mounted to the wall, which displayed different vantage points from security cameras around the store. The air was absolutely stifling in the cluttered room. Air conditioner wasn't working either. Neither was a tall metal fan, warped from years of use, which stood in the corner, behind the propped open door. She groaned. It was too hot to sit in the office. That's where she was supposed to be, if there wasn't anything to do in the store, and she'd finished all her closing duties over an hour ago. The last chore was to count down her till, which she couldn't do until the doors were locked. She gazed lacklusterly at the string of computer monitors. It was too hot. She moved out of the office and around into the cashier pit, or just the pit, as they called it, even before she started. A pit was a good name for it, though. Raised above the main room, the plexiglass encasement, paired with an overstock of electronics, felt like a trap yet to spring shut. She'd once thought to clear this space, but no matter how much she cleaned up, corporate always sent more, citing empty stocking numbers and bad gateways, like the broken system was the store's fault. It was no wonder her overworked boss had put in his resignation 6 months ago. He'd begged and begged for them to halt his shipments, but the mouths of capitalism are ever crunching. She heard a ding and looked up. An older man and his grandson came through the double doors. She straightened, smiling. "Good evening, boys. No Jackson tonight?" The blond boy came running up to the counter to talk. His grandfather smiled at her, then dipped off into the back of the store to get his cleaning supplies. The boy put his head up on the counter, propping his chin and looking up at her. "No, he's at home. His mom says he can't come over every night 'cause it's not fair to my grandpa. But I think she's being silly. My grandpa likes Jackson just as much as I do, and I think he could stay the night, every night, and my grandpa wouldn't mind." Ophelia nodded understandingly. "Oh, I get it, but it's also nice to sleep in your own bed, I'm sure." That gave the young'un pause. "Oh, I didn't think of that. I never go to his house. He always comes to mine, so I never have to leave my bed. I wonder if he does miss his bed. I'll ask him tomorrow. I love it when there's no school. We caught 12 frogs today." "And you didn't bring me any legs?" "What?" "Fried frog's legs. They're delicious. You didn't bring me any?" The boy shook his head, horrified. "You eat their legs? How do they hop if you eat their legs?" She scarcely suppressed her laugh. It came out of her nose in a painfully dry snort. "Oh, you caught those kind of frogs. My bad." He knit his brow in confusion, looking absolutely wrecked by her statement. She was about to push it a little further when a grandpa called to him. "Stop bothering the lady and come pick your breakfast." A gruff man with a kind heart, Ophelia didn't know what had come to the boy's parents, only that he didn't have any. The pair, and sometimes trio, came into the store regularly. The boy ran to the cereal aisle as his grandpa made his way to the refrigerators directly across from the cash registers. Seconds later, he threw down a container of laundry soap, a pack of teepee, and some other essentials. Then he held up the milk cooked on one large finger. "This, too." He offered it back to her. She scanned it. A box of cereal and a small package of cookies appeared on the counter. The man looked down at his round-faced grandson. "Put him back." "But..." The man let out a guttural noise, and the boy scampered back to the sweets aisle with the cookies. Ophelia didn't feel bad for the child. His grandpa usually got him a bag of something good, but sometimes things were just not in the budget. Getting told no would help him in the long run. Not always having what you wanted was important. She knew she should not romanticize the struggle. That poverty was a really horrific experience that traumatized many, and she had no idea, because she could end her own poverty at any moment, return to a lush mansion, and never make her own choices again, but never want for a warm bed. But that struggle, being able to struggle, to her, meant freedom. "Have a good night," she called to the boys as they left her store. It was nice to see them. They were her favorites. Not that she would ever tell them that. Ophelia had always longed for a grandfather like that. Her own grandparents were very different. One half they only saw on holidays, when they came to stay, giving insincere cheek kisses in clothes that never fit, always a size too small, with the encouragement to shrink to fit them. That grandfather had always made her very uncomfortable. He'd never touched her, but there had always been this unspoken danger in his proximity. The other half of her grandparents were very distant, living in some vague town in Florida her parents never found the time to visit. She was sure she'd met them, but couldn't quite remember when. Neither of her parents were any warmer, except her dad. She had vague memories of their life before dance, of him chasing her, then laughing, messes they made and cleaned up together, instead of the white expectation to never falter. And any speck of imperfection was swept away so quickly you'd doubt it was ever there to begin with. Ophelia sighed. One thing she missed about home, about dance of all things, was that she never wanted for activity. She had danced, school, clubs, friends, and sincere as it all was, she never stopped long enough to hate it all. Not till college, when she got hurt and couldn't sweep that away in 10 seconds. Ophelia sucked a breath. She could see her mother screaming at the doctor, throwing literal hundreds at him. Her career can't be over! Fix her, or I'll find a doctor that will! Her crooked, lying smile, Ophelia couldn't remember her mother's eyes. No matter how hard she tried, she could never picture her mother's full face, only her body from the nose down, that mouth. The hard disdain there, the immaculate applied lip stain. Sometimes the gentle motherly smile, the prideful one, letting Ophelia swell and her mother's movements glide. The one that vanished after the age of 21. Ophelia swallowed her pain. She did not miss her mom. She thought she would, but the longer she was away, the less the New Yorker wanted to see her, the less she remembered anything good about her. Her dad, on the other hand, oh, that was one whole different story. She was so scared of him seeing her, of his eyes meeting hers, and for that disappointment to still be there. She felt sick. She wrapped her arms around herself, utterly cold despite the heat. She wished that he could hug her, not look at her with that. She tried not to keep slipping, but her heart mourned loudly. Soon she was wiping her tired face, sniffing and trying to collect herself. It was so stupid. She was just stupid. She wished. It was time to close the store. She didn't care if she got in trouble. She was tired of being at work, and it was finally 9:30, a little after, actually. She marched back down the cluttered pit path, back into the office, then down the long hallway, past the bathroom, the pit, into the front doors. There was no one outside. Clouds had closed over the moon, blotting out the only light for miles. This sight had always chilled her, right to the bones. She had no sort of night vision. Her home was one that never slept. This place was like death. Inky black abyss. In these moments, she felt like a single life form, stranded on a rogue planet. She rather liked the sensation, but not when it got to be too much. And tonight it was too much. She was lonely, like she hadn't been in a really long time. She missed New York. She wanted to reach out, not to her parents, but her friends. She'd once had so many that she'd never had a single second alone with herself in her whole life. She knew none of them would answer a weird phone number with a strange area code, and if they did, they would not be pleased to hear from her. Instead, she started texting Hannah. It was a long message, a bit rambling, but she knew the girl wouldn't mind. Hannah liked her. They shared a different bond than the ones Ophelia had once had, where those friends were, respectfully, pieces of shit people who only hung around her for the perks, or because habits were real. Hannah was someone she could genuinely rely on. She told the truth. She helped Ophelia grow. She wanted the best for her, and most importantly, they actually enjoyed each other's company. She tossed her phone into the bag and locked herself in the office with the money tray. Closing procedures went quickly when she was alone. Quicker if Hannah didn't text her, which she had yet to do. Ophelia hoped she wasn't asleep. It would be a shame to wake her when she called in a few minutes. Well before 10 p.m., she was sitting in her beat-up Durango, heading for home. An Apocalypse Keepers production.
I can't believe we're 3 episodes in already. Holy Very cool. I hope you enjoyed that episode. We're gonna circle on back next week for chapter 3. Hannah is exhausted. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed making it. And if you did, if you could just wander on down to my Patreon and show your support, I would be very glad. Yeah, that's it. Glad. Okay, bye. Thank you.